excited about today because we're jumping into a future that honestly sounds a bit like science fiction. But the science, it suggests it's maybe closer than you think. Our source today is this fantastic chapter, The Shape of Things to Come. It really takes you on this journey into, well, the future of human longevity. And it's full of these really audacious predictions, but also some quite profound questions. So our mission today isn't just about if we can live longer, but kind of what happens when we do. We'll unpack the possibilities, which are pretty astonishing, but also face the anxieties because they're definitely real, and maybe find a surprising path forward.
It is striking, isn't it, how the author frames it all? It's basically this tension, this debate between enormous optimism about what we can do, human potential, and then this deep worry about the challenges that come with such radical change. It pushes you to question, well, pretty much everything you thought you knew about life, society, ourselves, really.
So how does he get to these big numbers? He starts with what he calls his conservative math for living longer. Think about this. Advanced early disease detection. We're talking DNA monitoring that could spot diseases years, literally years, before they show symptoms.
Fighting cancer way earlier, diagnosing infections super fast.
Yeah, or like your car seat sensing an irregular heartbeat.
Yeah.
Or your keyboard stroke suggesting early Parkinson's.
Exactly. Those kinds of things. He figures just that tech could add, conservatively, a decade of healthy life.
A whole decade.
Okay.
See? Lifestyle changes, calorie restriction, maybe cutting back on certain animal proteins, more exercise, developing brown fat.
Right, the stuff that helps burn calories. He thinks that could add another 5 years, conservatively. Could be 10, potentially.
Okay, so that's 15 years just there.
Then you get into these molecules. They call them survival circuit boosters. They essentially put our own longevity genes to work harder. Animal studies have shown they can give like 10, maybe even 40% more healthy years. So even if you take the low end, say 10% gain for humans, that's another 8 years.
Oh, now we're at 23 years added.
Yep. And then the final category, he calls it advanced interventions. This is where it gets really futuristic.
Like resetting our epigenome. That's like rebooting our cell's operating system, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Or getting rid of senescent cells. Those are the zombie cells that hang around causing trouble as we age. Maybe with drugs, maybe even a vaccine.
Or growing new organs.
Yeah, like
Exactly. Any one of those could potentially add another 10 years. So you add all that up.
Yeah.
His conservative total.
3 years added on to today's average.
Which brings the average life expectancy to a staggering 113 years. And that's the average, meaning more than half the population could live even longer.
Wow, 113.
And this ties into a key concept he brings up, longevity escape velocity.
Right, explain that again. It's the idea that for every month or year you manage to stay alive and healthy, science advances enough to give you more time back. So maybe in 40 years, for every month you live, you gain an extra 2 weeks of life expectancy. By the end of the century, maybe for every month you live, you gain a whole extra month.
So you're constantly outrunning death, almost.
In a way, yeah. Which leads to his prediction that Joan Calment, the woman who lived to 122.
The oldest verified person ever.
Right. Eventually, she'll fall off the list of the oldest humans. People born today will surpass her.
He mentions that when he first started talking about these numbers, some colleagues were like, whoa, maybe dial it back.
Yeah, not a good look, they apparently said.
Yeah.
That the public wasn't ready.
But that seems to have changed.
Oh, definitely. The shift in the scientific community is noticeable. Many of those same colleagues are now openly optimistic. Some are even, taking things like metformin or NAD boosters themselves.
Things thought to help with aging.
Exactly. So the debate isn't so much if it'll happen anymore, but more like, what do we do when it does? The science is getting harder to ignore.
And the author himself says, look, maybe I'm wrong. But if I am, it might be because I was too conservative.
That's a really interesting point, and history kind of backs that up, doesn't it? Experts often miss those big exponential shifts.
Like who?
Well, think about Albert Michelson, Nobel Prize winner in physics, saying in 1894 that physics was pretty much wrapped up, right before quantum mechanics blew everything wide open.
Oh, yeah. Bad timing.
Or Bill Gates, in his first edition of The Road Ahead in 95, completely missing the internet. He had to add it in a year later.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. It underlines that Kevin Kelly quote, "Embrace things rather than try and fight them. Predicting the future is hard, especially when tech moves exponentially."
So, okay. What does this mean for a kid born today, you're saying? Reaching 100 in good health is plausible.
Plausible, yeah. 120 becomes a known potential for many. And if cellular reprogramming really takes off, maybe 150 isn't out of the question by the end of the century.
And maybe no limit at all, if that information theory of aging holds up.
That's the really mind-bending part. If aging is just lost information, maybe we can just keep resetting it. But that's also where it starts to get, well, daunting for some people.
Yeah, he says it can be terrifying, this idea of completely upending what it means to be human. And the critics aren't just, random voices. His own kid, Alex, raised some tough questions.
That's a powerful moment in the chapter. Alex basically asks, look, your generation and the ones before messed up the planet. Climate change, war, crises. And now you want people to live longer, to do more damage.
Oof. Yeah, that cuts deep.
It really sets the stage for all the big worries, doesn't it? Environmental, social, political.
Which brings us straight to that population bomb idea.
Yeah.
I mean, human population growth has been insane. 500 million around Columbus's time, now 8 billion or so.
And many estimates put Earth's carrying capacity right around that 8 billion mark. We're basically there.
You had Frank Fenner, the guy who helped wipe out smallpox, predicting back in 2010 that humans could be gone in 100 years because of population and unbridled consumption.
Yeah. And we've heard these warnings before, right? Thomas Malthus way back. Paul and Ann Ehrlich's book, The Population Bomb in '68.
The one with the baby on the bomb cover.
That's the one. Mass starvation, inevitable collapse. Now, their worst predictions didn't quite happen everywhere, but millions have starved, often because of politics, not just lack of food.
But the updated concern isn't just population numbers, is it? It's consumption.
Exactly. It's consumption and waste. The stats for, say, Americans are pretty stark, consuming way more food and water than needed, generating pounds of trash every day.
Right. The Global Footprint Network said if everyone lived like Americans, we'd need like 4 Earths.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
4 years for Earth to regenerate 1 year of American-level consumption. Clearly not sustainable.
And we're already seeing the consequences. Climate change messing up food webs, species at risk, coral bleaching.
Rising sea levels threatening cities like New York, Miami, Mumbai.
And the WHO estimates 150,000 deaths a year already from climate change, maybe doubling soon.
And the scary part is, these warnings, they're based on current lifespans. If people live decades longer.
More people, more crowding, more consumption, more waste. It amplifies all those problems if we don't change course.
Precisely. There's no model where it doesn't, unless something fundamental shifts in how we live.
Okay, shift gears slightly. Another concern. The 100-year politician.
Ah, yes. The idea that progress, especially on social issues, sometimes relies on older generations with maybe more fixed views passing on.
Science advances one funeral at a time, as Planck said.
Right. And we see older populations growing, sometimes becoming more nationalistic. You look at the U.S. Congress, folks serving well into their 80s, even 90s.
Like Strom Thurmond, who served until he was 100 and fought civil rights for decades.
Exactly. So the question becomes, what if someone with views like that held power for an entire century? What does that do to progress on kindness, tolerance, justice? It's a sobering thought.
And then there's the practical stuff, like Social Security. The original system, back in 1935, was built for a different world.
Totally different. Loads of workers paying in for relatively few retirees who didn't live that long past 65, like 41 workers per beneficiary.
Ida Mae Fuller, the first beneficiary, paid in like $25 and got back over 22 grand. Lived to 100.
Incredible. But today, it's maybe 3 workers per beneficiary, and people live way longer, often 20 years past retirement.
And fixing it is political dynamite. The third rail.
Right. And beyond Social Security, there's just no economic model for a world where huge numbers of people live healthily for 40-plus years past traditional retirement.
We just don't know what that looks like. Work patterns, spending, healthcare needs.
We have no data. The author mentions working with economists to try and build these models, but admits, essentially, we are flying blind into one of the most economically destabilizing events imaginable.
Okay, that leads to another big one. What divides us grows greater. Inequality.
Yeah, the lifespan gap between rich and poor is already widening dramatically.
It was like 1.2 years in the 70s. Now it's 13 years difference between the richest 10% and poorest 10% in the U.S.
13 years. And you get this virtuous cycle for the wealthy. Money buys better health, which means longer life, which means more time to accumulate wealth.
And they can afford the cutting-edge stuff, stem cells, the best doctors, potentially these new longevity drugs.
Right. And because aging isn't technically classified as a disease yet by most governments, these treatments might be considered elective luxuries. only for those who can pay.
Which brings up that chilling Gattaca scenario.
Exactly. The fear of creating two classes of humans, the genetically enhanced long-lived valids and the invalids left behind, where the rich can essentially guide their own evolution, leaving the poor further and further behind. It's a really disturbing possibility.
Okay, so environmental disaster, political stagnation, economic chaos, societal fracture, it sounds pretty bleak.
It can sound bleak, for sure. These are massive challenges.
Yet, the author remains optimistic. He keeps saying we've been here before.
Yeah, and he uses that powerful analogy of 19th century London.
Right, when H.G. Wells was born, London was off.
Hellish, pretty much. Millions crammed together, filth, disease, cholera. But that very crisis, that population boom, forced innovation.
The disease was the cure.
Kind of, yeah. John Snow proving germ theory, leading to clean water, sewers. And London today, 9 million people, thriving, lifespans doubled.
So the problem wasn't the number of people, but how they lived.
Exactly. It challenges that idea of fixed limits. Like the Royal Society motto, nullius in verba, take nobody's word for it. Question assumptions.
Including the assumption of a fixed carrying capacity for Earth.
Right. Van Leeuwenhoek guessed 13.4 billion way back in 1679. Some estimates are low, like 8 billion, but others go over 100 billion if we innovate.
Because those models often miss human ingenuity.
Precisely. As Earl C. Ellis says, our capacity comes more from our social systems and tech than environmental limits. We create our niches.
I love the airplane analogy he uses. When someone called longevity unnatural.
Ha, yeah. Gesturing around the plain metal tube, flying miles high, breathing fake air, watching movies. What part of that is natural?
Rejecting improvements because they're unnatural is just silly, given how we already live.
It really highlights that for humans, culture and technology are natural. It's what we do. The only unnatural thing would be to just accept limitations on improving our lives.
Okay, but what about the population growth itself? Won't longer lives just mean too many people?
Well, here's the interesting thing. The rate of population growth has actually been falling since the 70s, steadily.
Why?
Mainly because women, when they have more education and economic opportunity, choose to have fewer children. Bill Gates argues convincingly that saving lives doesn't cause overpopulation. Development and falling birth rates do.
So even if death stopped, the population wouldn't explode indefinitely.
Growth would be slow and eventually level off or even decline because of lower birth rates. And look at the last century, huge population growth, and yet
Humanity thrived. Less poverty, more literacy, lower child mortality.
exactly. Steven Pinker's whole point in Enlightenment Now. Despite the problems, things have generally gotten better while population grew, maybe even because of it in some ways. More minds solving problems.
Which leads to another optimistic point. The value of elders.
Yes, often overlooked. Think of Harriet Thompson running marathons in her 90s. That's a glimpse of a future where age isn't the barrier it is now.
We used to revere elders for wisdom, but that faded a bit.
It did, with printing, then digital tech. But studies show job performance, especially leadership, often gets better with age. Look at successful older CEOs. Age discrimination doesn't really make sense based on the data.
And economically, longer healthy lives mean a bigger return on education and training.
Absolutely. People are investments. More healthy, productive years mean more contribution. It's not about forcing people to work longer, but giving them the choice.
And the fear of older workers crowding out younger ones.
The data doesn't really support it. Countries with earlier retirement often have lower GDP. Places like Boston show high-skilled workers, often older, actually create jobs. Longer work spans could actually help solve social security issues.
Which brings us to Dana Goldman's research, Unleashing the Army.
Right. He looked at the economics and saw the key wasn't just extending life, but extending healthy life.
And his big insight.
It was realizing that tackling aging itself, rather than just individual diseases one by one, is the game changer. Delaying aging delays all age-related diseases simultaneously.
Which creates a peace dividend.
A massive one. Ending the war on individual diseases could save trillions, over $7 trillion in the U.S. alone over 50 years, he estimated. And those benefits keep growing for future generations.
Well, $7 trillion, what could we do with that?
Exactly. Fund research to solve climate change, cure infectious diseases, fix education, ensure global food security, you name it. It unlocks this huge potential.
And unleashes this army of people.
Yeah. Brilliant minds, older experienced people potentially returning to work or contributing in new ways, women less constrained by the career versus parenting choice. Just more human potential unlocked.
And finally, the most profound benefit, maybe More time.
More time. That Princeton Good Samaritan study is fascinating that people were nicer, more helpful when they weren't rushed.
And Seneca is saying life is short and anxious if you're always fearing the future.
Right. So the big question is, what happens if we have decades, maybe centuries, more time? Could we become more compassionate, less anxious, more thoughtful, maybe pursue multiple deep interests or careers over a single, much longer life?
That's a lot to think about.
It really is. How would you choose to live with that extra time?
So wrapping up, this deep dive really shows these two potential futures side by side. One, kind of dystopian crisis, inequality, the problems we discuss amplified.
And the other, almost utopian progress, potential unleashed, where longer, healthy lives actually help solve our biggest crises.
And the key takeaway seems to be, the choices we make now are critical.
Absolutely. The author argues that preventing disease and disability, tackling aging itself, might be the single most powerful thing we can do to steer us towards that better future. It could avert crises and unlock incredible possibilities.
So as we stand here, maybe on the edge of these radically longer lives, the question isn't just how long will we live?
But how will we choose to live with that amazing, unprecedented gift of time?
A huge question to leave everyone with.
Indeed. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into what might be coming. Lots to chew on.
Definitely. And we hope you'll join us next time as we dig into another fascinating topic. Until then, keep